history of Durham, North Carolina, and the personal history of social change work are interwoven together. They have been guided by the standards of moral conduct pursued by an influential Baptist pastor. This is a portrait of a minister who devoted his life to alleviating poverty. Serving the Baptist Church for over 40 years, Reverend Mel Williams recognized the moral quality of concrete acts to promote social justice in his community.
I grew up in a small town called Aberdeen. It's about 1,500 people. I'm the oldest of 4 boys in a working class family. Small community where we knew everyone. Church and the school were the center of our lives. It was a segregated community at that time. My family, I wouldn't say that we were poor, but we were probably one paycheck away from going to live with Aunt Thelma because the family had no savings. By that time I had gone to college. We didn't have money for school, but I managed to get a scholarship and work through the year and in the summers.
Reverend Williams' career began during the 1960s, experiencing the effects of the civil rights movement. Martin Luther King's charismatic words echo in Reverend Williams' many passionate projects to help lift the poor from poverty. The time he spent during his youth at Aberdeen and later at Wake Forest was instrumental in shaping his commitment to racial reconciliation and combating poverty.
1963, my church took a vote on whether to seat blacks in the sanctuary or in the balcony and voted no to both. And my pastor the next Sunday resigned. He said, I cannot in good conscience serve a congregation that would make that decision. I was a student at that time at Wake Forest University in Winston-Salem. Martin Luther King also spoke in Waite Chapel at Wake Forest. And one of the things that he said that I remembered there is that the church has been a tail light in race relations when it should be a headlight.
Reverend Williams went on to attend Yale Divinity School, where he witnessed protests against the Vietnam War and learned how to take stands on controversial issues. The practical advice and examples of others supported an enlightened Williams' morality, as taught by this Judeo-Christian moral principle. Man has in his heart a law inscribed by God. His conscience is man's most secret core and his sanctuary.
I learned there too from Bill Coffin, who said, okay, if you're going to take stands on controversial issues, the important thing is to be a good pastor.
Looking for a small community environment for his 2 small children, Reverend Williams and his wife moved to Durham, North Carolina.
All the tobacco left by, I'd say, but not 1990 probably. But then you had the blight of downtown. What is now American Tobacco Complex was just blight. It was just buildings with busted windows, and it looked awful. And Durham was also still trying to overcome the image of being a crime-ridden city, and the education system not so great. One of the first things that drew my attention here was the gun violence.
In response to Durham's gun violence, Reverend Williams joined with community members to form anti-poverty and violence programs.
When a murder occurs in the community, the nonprofit Religious Coalition for a Nonviolent Durham responds with a vigil.
We just don't think handguns have a place in public places. And so we formed the group and began regular meetings, and we found Marcia Owen.
I could not turn away. You know, as a mother, as a longtime Durham citizen, as a person who loves God.
We're an interfaith organization, and we are what I would call radically inclusive. There is nothing that should divide us.
One of the things that's happening with gun violence is what happened to the sacredness of human life? That we've somehow failed to impart that. How do we learn to accept and respect each other's humanity?
Lawrence Kohlberg, an American psychologist best known for his theory of stages of moral development, suggested that conscience is the final stage in the process. What is right is defined by the decision of conscience. At heart, these are the universal principles of justice regarding reciprocity and equality of human rights and respect for the dignity of human beings as individual persons.
Poverty is often underlying a number of our social problems, whether it's gun violence or school dropouts or drug use. And so we need to do something about poverty.
Many community projects have helped to improve the lives of the homeless and the unemployed by providing training and jobs and addressing how to fulfill their basic needs.
That became the forerunner for Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty, because they were watching what was happening in North Carolina. Health is a crucial piece in the poverty puzzle, but if we can empower little congregations, certainly in underserved areas, congregations can be health centers, and the hospital can be a disease and surgical center.
Annual visits to a California monastery nourishes his conscience and his inner sanctuary through meditating, praying, being in conversation with God, and listening to his inner voice. He is reminded of the difference between the subjective self and what is objectively true outside of ourselves. Reverend Williams stays passionate but humble and shares honest inspirational moments from the monastery and spiritual words that guide him from the meditative journey.
I go out there and cry. I just cry a lot, which is very useful to me. It has been an amazing experience that has really fed my inner life. It awakens compassion and mercy and justice, those qualities that we need for our work in the world. If we don't do the internal work, you can't do long-term social justice work without an inner practice, some kind of practice. That's what happens to me at the monastery. I wanted to pay a visit on myself, to get in touch with being. Be still and know, be still, but then be. Just be. Being and goodness are one and the same thing. So if we can get back to being, then maybe we have a chance of discovering the goodness, the true self that is in all of us.
Take your time now. Think about it. Blues is also an inspiration for prayer. That's the other part of the blues, and the truth. Make your own prayer for peace.
Does that get at your question?
Some more words you need to add.
Oh, more words. Oh, what words would you like me to add? Oh, yes. Okay. Well, that was the year before. The 4 words, and I guess you read the article because in Faith and Leadership.